They're coming.
Good morning and welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners issues and updates on this June 13th, 2023. County Administrator Gary, I almost called you a commissioner. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Would you please convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District?
I will recess as a Board of County Commissioners and convene as the North Clackamas County Parks and Recreation District.
These are requests for consent agenda for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Item 1, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon City School District for development and ongoing provision of park facilities at the Jennings Lodge Elementary School property. Fiscal impact is a minimum of $166,784 for planning and design and up to $2.9 million total if future funds are identified for engineering and construction. Funding is through the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Capital Asset Funds. No county general funds are involved. Mike Borker is the director of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Go ahead.
Thank you, directors. If there's any big questions, I think the description that Gary just read kind of covers it, but to give a little history, we had an existing IGA with the school district for construction of a park and use of that area at Jennings Lodge. Because the school district changed hands on who was in that particular school, it's no longer a school district specific facility. It's OCCS, Oregon City Continuing, Oregon City Continuing Education. Because of that, and because of time delays with COVID and other things that have happened, we needed to renegotiate the IGA with the school district to extend both the timeout from when we would be moving forward with the plan, plus renegotiate some other terms of the land use. Since it wasn't a school, the use changed a little bit, so our new IGA gives us some more favorable terms for public to be able to use that property. Had it remained a school, the property would have been only usable during non-school hours. Because of the change in use, we can use most of that property, and as part of it, we're going to be constructing a small playground area that's immediately adjacent to the school with a fenced-in area for them to be able to use. So we're coming to you with an IGA that has already been approved by the Oregon City School District, and we would recommend that you approve as well, so we can move forward with the next item on the consent agenda, which is the contract to begin design work. And if anybody has any questions.
Commissioner Savas.
Well, Mike, you may have answered my question, but maybe more specifically, can you give me a range idea what the likelihood is for access by the public to the park, as you know, the playground as a park? Will that, you mentioned it'd be greater, it sounds like.
It's during any business hours that the school is I'd have to go back and look and see, but I think during school operation, still, because of the way that we're planning the playground design, having a smaller aged playground attached essentially to the school with a fenced-in area, my understanding is the new terms give us access to that being public use all the time.
So 7 days a week?
As far as I'm understanding, yes.
Daylight hours?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I think that's a concern.
Yeah, that was our chief concern. And had it remained a school district facility like it was, we wouldn't have been able to renegotiate. But since it had changed usage, we were able to renegotiate that. So I think that's a win for us, for the community.
Okay. Yeah, if we can convey that message to the members of the community, DAC members as well, that'd be great, because I think there's been this uncertainty, not knowing, being distant from it.
Yeah, and I'm doing a presentation, I believe, next week with one of their CPO groups out there.
All right, well, glad this is finally coming around.
Point of clarification, it's the Oregon City Community Education.
Sorry, yes, community education, not continuing.
I'm glad to see community education is still around. I don't think many districts have those anymore. Any further questions? Seeing no objections, thank you very much.
Item 2, approval of a professional services contract with McKenzie Engineering for planning and design to develop a neighborhood park at Jennings Lodge Elementary School property. Contract value is $166,784. Funding is through the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Capital Asset Funds. No county general funds are involved.
This one, as I mentioned in my first report, this is the follow-up to that. We'd been holding off on getting this contract signed and initiated until we had the IGA fixed with the school district. So now that that has, if you all approved for that to move forward for approval, then this one would be to begin engagement with a design firm as listed, to get us to, at the very least, right now, a conceptual stage of the project. Have design charrettes, have community input, have a full community engagement, get us to a point where we have some drawings and cost estimates, because quite honestly, right now, we don't have any dedicated set-aside funds for construction of the project. So this 166 gets us through the design and initial cost estimation phase for us to then determine how we could move forward. Because right now, we just don't have an idea of what the community wants. It could be, fairly simple and inexpensive. It could be more complex and much more so. So
You said 166?
I believe, isn't that the correct number?
Yes.
166 is the award amount for the contract.
166,000.
Yes.
Okay. In the contract, under paragraph 3, consideration, the district agrees to pay contractor $372,408 for the construction. I'm just reading what paragraph 3 says
And apologies,
on page 3.
we're going to have to get you clarification on that.
Well, I want to know what we're approving today.
Well, we actually approve it on Thursday.
Thursday.
We'll approve it
Well,
Thursday.
it's not going to go to Thursday until we know exactly what we're doing, unless we can make an adjustment on Thursday during the business meeting.
Staff, that contract needs to be amended or corrected.
Total value, okay, on page 2, recommendation, the total value is $166,784, just like you said. Then you go to the next page. Sorry, paragraph 2, it says, district agrees to pay the contractor $372,000. So obviously, there's monies coming in from here that is going out. But one thing
Okay,
says
I
the other.
just got an answer from staff. Thankfully, they're listening in. The contract allows for the $300,000 under that contract, but only $166,000 is approved through the action. So we would be only paying them up, we could pay up to if there's additional services, I believe
Gary,
is
we're
the way
going to
it's being.
fix this and bring it back.
So thank you, Chair Smith, for catching this. This is why we do this, so you can help us too. Sometimes we miss the mark. We're going to pull this mic
Sure.
and correct the staff report
We'll
and the
do that.
contract. We'll bring
I
it
want
back.
to know, just lay them out. Just say, this is for this.
Yeah,
this is
apologies for the
this,
confusion.
And this is where the money came from.
Yeah, if there's
Real
intent,
simple math, real simple math.
Yeah, we'll bring it
Paul.
back to you.
yeah, if there's intent for a second phase, then let's know about it up front.
And I think that's what, the way that was written, and I just hadn't caught that wasn't spelled out, is, as staff is telling me, we would come back with an amendment if there was things to add on to that contract, but there's a better way we can show that. So we'll bring it back to you.
So do we do any research to make sure there's no conflicts of interest with anyone associated with the NCPRD when we award these contracts?
Procurement handles all of that, and we sign all kinds of things saying that whoever's in the evaluation process, which I'm not sure who internal staff that was on other than I know Heather Cook and I'm guessing a few of the other planning folks. We would all divulge if we had conflicts as part of the procurement process, because if it's challenged, then we need to be able to answer for that.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily talking about this particular contract or contractor, but I am talking about overall, making sure that we are doing our due diligence. I understand procurement does what they do, but I think the district has a responsibility to inform procurement if there is a
We do.
potential conflict.
Yes, that's what I was saying. When we enter into judging or evaluating a contract award, I know for this one that I just did for the systems plan, we had to attest that we were not aware of any conflicts with anybody that's been, or that put in bids. I forget how all it was worded, but yes, to the best of my knowledge, everybody abides by that.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Next, Gary.
Item 3, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas County related to construction of the Oak Lodge Library. The agreement value is $21.5 million for library construction. Funding is through Library District Reserve, Capital Reserve, and Fund Balance, state ARPA funds, county ARPA funds, and $5.7 million in budgeted county general funds. Jeff Munz, Assistant County Counsel, is joining. I'm going to recommend we pull this item as well, but I'm going to let Jeff explain what this is, what we've done up to this point, and then Commissioner Savas, I know, has some feedback. But go ahead, Jeff.
Yes, this was a matter we had before you on June 7th last week to discuss the IGA, and I understand that Commissioner Savas had some questions regarding the overall process. So this particular IGA is the first agreement in a series of agreements between the county and NCPRD for the construction of the Oak Lodge Library. This IGA is intended to essentially get permission for the county to come on the property, begin construction, and then coordinate the use and of the property for the mutual construction. We have a remodeling of Concord School on the property, the construction of the park on the Concord property, as well as the new Oak Lodge Library. And so the next phases would be the purchase and sale agreement of the property to the county, but because the preferred method for that at this time, that we're still looking at options, but the method of doing a condo plat to allow for the most flexibility of use of the property for the two parties to coordinate activities and allow NCPRD to program and develop that site for the most programs to benefit the Parks District, as well as maintaining the kind of shared use and supporting the library. So that would be the next phase, is the purchase and sale agreement, along with an operations IGA as well. And given that the overall scheduling, planning for the construction of these two projects is not complete, it's hard for us to put it all in an agreement and say, at this phase, we're going to have this use of the parking lot. At this phase, we're going to have lay-down site for Concord, adjacent to the library, and so on. We just don't know those details yet. And so when we get to that level of knowledge to how we can craft agreements to allow for operation of the library, if that's complete, but yet Concord is not, we'll know that. We'll be able to put that into an interim IGA. But then the long term is an IGA for the operations, which shares the appropriate costs and use of the property and clearly delineates the exclusive use areas and hours and so on to really maintain the cooperative use of this property. But Mr. Savas, you had some questions about potential additional language in this agreement and questions on how that would work.
Yeah, well, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here today, but I appreciate the suggestions you made yesterday via email. So I don't have no problem with the monetary aspects of this, so it's not about that. I have no problem moving the project forward. It's really about understanding the agreements, and the board needs to know that. But more importantly, last week, I did watch the meetings last week on the recordings, and I think the board had clear intent, whether it was the board of directors or it was the board of commissioners, full intent of having a fee simple ownership of the land under the library. And so that complicates all of this together. So let's continue the discussion. I did talk with Dan Johnson yesterday about another different model that would give us land ownership under a condo plat scenario. And so I think he was going to look into that.
Yeah, and Dan and I have spoken about that as well. And I think that when you look at the fee simple ownership for the county, we potentially have setback requirements that would create some issues in creating, using the space the most efficiently on the site. And with a condo plat, it's not like the Parks District would be able to evict the building. You own that space, and it simplifies the agreements and then the use of the property. But you don't have to have a lot of overlapping easements for exclusive use areas, easements for access, all those types of easement agreements that would be all over the map essentially, and literally to provide that required access. With a condo plat, the two entities own their buildings, and then the Parks District would own the land, and that would allow for a lot more flexibility in the agreements. But it would still be able to secure the same, protections for both parties on the uses, so you don't have down the road incompatible uses. Say if the governance of NCPRD changes into an independent district, you have another body that you're working with, as the county commissioners, owning the library for the county, making those decisions on its behalf. One issue would be you could wait to change any governance until this process is done. Or we build into the agreements the inability to terminate certain aspects of this until they're unless there is a situation of clear breach, not anything at will. You'd want to maintain it so that it's a very solid agreement, so that it's very stable going forward.
Right. The way I would just summarize it, my concern is that with what was presented last week with the condo plat, as you're kind of outlining, puts more reliance upon the agreements being crafted very carefully.
Yeah.
More so than it would be for a fee simple ownership. That's my point. So we'll work on the details.
Okay.
But
Yeah, it can all be
Commissioner West.
accomplished.
Commissioner West, thank you.
Mr. Munns, thank you. I definitely feel like I need more clarification, education on what we're talking about here, condo plat property versus the fee simple ownership. Can you humor me just for a minute and help me understand what is a condo plat property? And maybe for the public listening, how is that different than a fee simple ownership?
Sure. If we were to do a fee simple ownership, essentially what we're doing is changing the lot lines of this property and carving it into two separate parcels. And that's going to have certain requirements under our zoning and development ordinance as far as what those setbacks are. I mean, it's all subject also to fire code, which doesn't change in either situation, but it delineates how far these buildings need to be apart. And then to provide certain access to the site, you would have to have easements potentially, because the library has access to a road behind it, but would never be the primary access to the library. And so parking would be on the NCPRD parcel. So you'd have to then have an easement for access to the library for the public. Again, this would all be also covered through an agreement for shared uses and shared expenses. But in a fee simple, you own the dirt. And so in that circumstance, you change the lot lines and you'd use easements to cover some of these access issues and setbacks and so on. In a condo, it's like in a condo building, you own your space. And so here, it would be a broader,
You own the sticks and bricks.
you own the building, but
Okay.
you don't own the dirt. And so it's legally a simpler solution as far as how we can construct this. But either could work. We just know that as far as the ease of shared uses of the site, it's less cumbersome to do it in our condo plat. But I think this is what we're continuing to work through as we're finalizing all these agreements and the work schedules and so on. What presents it as the best option. Either place, there's going to be a transfer of title from the Parks District to the county, in which we're going to put deed restrictions in there so that it continues to be a compatible use. And then through the agreements, NCPRD would be agreeing that their use would remain compatible, so they can't turn it into some sort of an organization, rent it out to something that would be incompatible with the library. So, you wear two hats in this, and that's a benefit, but I think also in just looking at what the buildings are and what the use for the community would be, it's the responsibility to make sure that they remain compatible.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're going to pull this item, make an adjustment, bring it back when it's ready.
Will do.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so only item 1 will go forward on this list for today. Thank you. Chair, would you now please convene as the Water Environment Services Board?
I will recess as a North Parks Recreation District and convene as a Water Environment Services.
This is request for consent agenda for Water Environment Services. Item 1, approval of an amendment to a contract with Carollo Engineers for additional scope of work for the Clackamas Area Interceptor Project. The amendment value is $296,238. Total contract value is increased to $4,027,811 for 5.5 years. Funding is through Water Environment Services Sanitary Sewer Construction Fund. No county general funds are involved. Greg Geist, Director of Water Environment Services, go ahead.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. As you hopefully know, we, over the next several years, are going to be updating, expanding our sewer pipes from all the way from Happy Valley to our Tri-City Treatment Plant. You may or may not know there is a 53-acre, the only Superfund site in the county, just northwest of Camp Withicum that spans the Sunrise Corridor. EPA reopened kind of their analysis of that in 2021, and if we want to run a pipe through there, we need to do significantly more analysis and study.
Are
So
you
that's what
needing
this
to
is.
mitigate any pollution?
We don't know yet.
Okay, so it could go up higher than what this contract value is?
So the contract value is for the design and engineering. The construction price could rise based on what we learn.
Based on mitigation, and then you'll come back and let us know
Yes.
the area of that. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair, would you please convene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I'll recess as Water Environment Services and convene as the Board of County Commissioners.
We'll meet as the Board of County Commissioners for the rest of this agenda. Next is request for consent agenda for regular county business. We'll start with elected officials, the Sheriff's Office, item 1. Approval of a cooperative law enforcement agreement with the United States Forest Service for law enforcement services in the Mount Hood National Forest. The agreement value is $70,212 for 1 year. Funding is through the United States Forest Service. No county general funds are involved. Nancy Artman, Finance Manager of the Sheriff's Office. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Administrator Schmidt. This agreement has been in place for more than a decade. We're seeking approval to receive funding to continue the services. This allows for patrols in the forest areas and in areas we otherwise wouldn't have the ability to do. We do have one dedicated deputy who serves in this area who is paid solely by the Forest Service.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, just a question. How, this one dedicated employee, is that, well, it's not 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365, but is it 365 days a year, or is it the calendar year?
So their schedule is no different than any of our other deputy sheriffs. It's a 4-10 work schedule, and they coordinate that with the Forest Service to provide coverage as deemed necessary and most useful. So there would be periods of time, especially during holidays, where that individual would work. And so that time is tracked in that manner.
Okay, so are all the costs properly associated with this? I mean, is this, or are we competing for the dollars, or, you know, is it actual cost? I mean, what's the analysis that goes into this number, come up with this number? It seems like a low cost for, not considering roll-ups and the actual cost plus equipment, patrol car, all that other stuff. It seems to me it ought to be a lot more expensive for one dedicated FTE.
Correct, and that's something that we're negotiating. Currently, we provide service up to the contracted amount. When those funds are gone, then the services are gone as well, unless an amendment is in place, which we have in years past worked with the Forest Service to amend the IGA so that there are additional funds added. But we're not providing any services at no cost.
So you're actually you mentioned you're negotiating this now?
We are negotiating with all of our vendors. We're working on rates that are all-inclusive and that are within the scope of what they're able to pay. Sometimes there are limitations in their funds that they can pay only for personnel, and they can't, for instance, pay for equipment. So we're looking into the methodology for all and then discussing with our partners what makes sense and what they can do.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the partnership with the Forest Service. I know there's some important work that has to be done out there, but I also know that there's, you know, it's got to be equitable. It's got to be
Absolutely.
fair for the rest of the county. It shouldn't be the county subsidizing that service in the Forest Service.
Correct, and we do not do that, so we agree with you completely.
Yeah, love to see how that's calculated. Love to see how that's costed out and how that's calculated.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Could share that
Thank
with you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner West.
As we talk, not just about finances here, but this is an actual, it looks like a contract to provide public safety services to the more rural parts of the county. Am I correct?
Yes.
I see that Jenna Morrison signed this submission, this letter, and the next one we're about to talk about. And we appreciate you being here to discuss this. I'm just wondering if it's normal practice that when it's beyond just financial matters to not have the undersheriff or the sheriff here before us.
That is a good question, Commissioner. I have been appointed to come before you all on these matters. If there are specific items that are on the agenda for which you would like them to appear, I'm sure that they would be happy to do so. And that's something that we can discuss.
If we have specific questions about the coverage for law enforcement within the rural part of the county, is the sheriff available to take those questions if we have questions about this going further?
Prior to Thursday,
Yeah.
I'm sure that we can definitely arrange that.
Okay. Thank you.
Gary, as a follow-up, all these consent agenda items have been presented by department heads, except for this department, or their designated number 2. I think that policy needs to be consistent. for everybody in the county.
So the sheriff's number two, the undersheriff, did sign the staff report, which is appropriate, the director or the deputy director, in this case, the sheriff or the undersheriff. For appointed directors, I ask directors only to come before and present consent agenda. For elected officials, I don't control them, but I ask them where they're, senior officer, and Nancy is a senior member of the sheriff's leadership team.
Well, an important question did come out from both these commissioners, is that we have one officer that does this whole Mount Hood area on 4 days a week. That's all that's assigned to that. I understand that's the sheriff's purview, but I also think the public needs to know that. And so those questions can maybe be answered more from, not that you're not wonderfully capable, you are, okay?
I understand.
But you're the finance person, and that's a different hat, answered by the sheriff and/or her undersheriffs. She has several.
One last thing.
Yes, Mr. Wicks.
And I bring this up because yesterday, during my lunch break at the hospital, when I was working a nursing shift, I spent a significant amount of time with a constituent who lives in this area, and she's very concerned about response times and coverage within that area. And so I was hoping to maybe have somebody that could specifically speak to that aspect outside the finances here. And so that's why I bring that up, because this is a common issue that we all care about, to make sure we have awesome coverage even in the more rural parts of the county. And so as we work on that issue, it would have been nice to maybe see Ms. Morrison or the sheriff herself.
Certainly, and I can get you more information on that, Commissioner. And to clarify, this is a grant that pays for one position. This isn't our sole service to the mountain areas. That is a district that we
They're
staff.
just helping out pay.
Correct.
Yes, because they
Correct.
don't have sworn police, so to speak.
Correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that the CCSO does have patrols, even in the most remote parts of the national forest, and this $70,000 is really just to enhance patrols during the summer months, Labor Day, Independence Day, and Memorial Day, when we have a huge surge of people up in the mountains. So that's what this is. It's only $70,000, but it's to enhance
Correct.
coverage for those periods of time.
Correct, for a truncated period of time, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no objections.
Item 2, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon State Police for user access to the automated biometric identification system. The agreement value is $62,520 over 5 years. Funding is through budgeted county general funds.
Thank you, Administrator Schmidt. The second item before you is for access to the Oregon State Patrol's system that provides very unique data for investigative purposes. We have access to fingerprints, palm prints, and other specific data that our sworn personnel can access. This is a 5-year agreement with a value of $12,504 per year.
Questions or comments? Good deal. Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank
Next,
you, Nancy. Have a good day.
Thank you, you as well.
we're still under elected officials. Next is the county clerk's office. Item 3, approval of a goods and services contract with Ryder Election Services for ballot printing services. Total value shall not exceed $800,000 over 4 years. Funding is through the clerk's office revenue. No county general funds are involved. County Clerk Catherine McMullen and Elections Manager Ann Jones. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. We're here to present a good and services contract for a formal long-term agreement for a ballot printer, and that is with Ryder Election Services. So this is the result of a request for proposals process that was completed in partnership with procurement in my office, and it was through an open competitive process. A little bit about the vendor. Ryder currently provides ballot printing services for 34 of our 36 Oregon counties, and they're a family-owned business in Bend, Oregon that's been in operation since 1902, and they've served as Clackamas County's emergency printing vendor since last year. So they've done 4 elections for us, beginning with the August 22 election. I'm available to answer questions. Thank you so much.
Does this Ryder company obviously works with our current ballot processing equipment. The system is called what again?
So our tally system is Runbeck, not Runbeck, sorry, our ballot sorter is Runbeck, and our tally system is Hart.
It was the HART system that was under scrutiny in only a couple other counties. So Ryder is able to accommodate all of our needs in that.
Yes, and they have for the last 4 elections quite successfully.
Thank you. Commissioner, I think it's Wes was up first. Go ahead.
I think that this was a really necessary action, and I hope this brings some more confidence in our election process. I'm curious to kind of compare and contrast where we were with the previous system and why we have so much more confidence and went in this route, and what was kind of that special kind of thing that made us feel confident with Ryder now versus the previous system, and can you kind of speak to how this might improve voter confidence?
Yes, we have a series of checks and balances in place with Ryder elections, and that includes getting a printed deck from them when we do our logic and accuracy tests, so that way we know if there are any issues well before we send out ballots. And then we also get those delivered in a particular way so that they're ready with our inserter, so that we're there doing the quality control as ballots are being inserted into the ballot packages and then mailed to voters.
And that quality improvement type of measures, they didn't exist prior to this?
I can't speak to what existed prior to this.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I thought I understood that this was the printing service for the ballots. It wasn't the equipment, HART. So just, how does HART roll into this?
So our tally system has specific requirements for printing ballots.
Right.
And so this printing vendor, as listed in the contract, and as they've done for the last 4 elections, meets those specific requirements. So we know that the ballot printer
Right, okay.
works well
Just
with
want
our
to make sure it
tally
wasn't
system.
equipment we were talking about. It was just the printing services.
Yeah, this is for printed ballots.
Right, and then this is a little bit offhand, but you're here, so I'm going to take advantage. In the budget request, you anticipate replace a piece of equipment. That was the ballot sorter?
That is our mail ballot sorter, yes.
Okay. Love to talk with you more about that. Make sure that, because it seems like in the history, my 12 years being here, we replaced equipment, and it seems like the life cycle should be longer. And I know that technology's come out, improvements, so I want to make sure we're buying the latest and greatest. Kind of like buying a PC, you want to make sure that it's going to keep up with changes. But we would like to just chat with you, maybe set up some time to make sure that we can see a greater life cycle out of the equipment when we buy it.
Yeah, we'll be starting that RFP process in the new fiscal year, and we are reaching the end of our life cycle with our current mail ballot sorter.
Okay, great, thank you.
Seeing no objections, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the list is the county council, the item for the Oak Lodge Library. We're pulling this item. It's the companion item to the North Clackamas Parks item, so that item will be pulled. Moving on, disaster management. Item 1, approval to apply for a fiscal year 2023 State Homeland Security Program grant. Anticipated grant value is $605,113.50 for 2 years. Funding through the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. No county general funds are involved. Daniel Nybauer, Director of Disaster Management. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners, Administrator Smith. This is an annual grant opportunity through FEMA that's administered by the Oregon Office of Emergency Management. This year, there is $139,113.50 that is available to the county that has been allocated to us, and then a competitive portion of this grant program as well. We do all the applications for eligible agencies within the county, and then if awarded, the other agencies will have their own agreement with Oregon Office of Emergency Management. So we are putting in for 2 grants. 2 projects under this grant, under the allocated amount. One is a mass care plan, and the other is under technology services, the Critical Information System Threat Detection Program. There are 6 additional projects that will be applying to the competitive program for a total of $466,000.
More the better. You said additional agencies. Did you mean additional agencies at the county or in neighboring jurisdictions?
Within the, not the county itself, but within the county. So in this case, it is Clackamas Fire and Oregon City School District. And under the competitive process, elections, technology services, and sheriff's office also have projects in the competitive.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. Further questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Next, Transportation and Development. Item 1, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Hood River County and Wasco County to continue administration of the Mount Hood Economic Alliance. No fiscal impact, no county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. We are here. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the Mount Hood Economic Alliance, but essentially, as you can read in the staff report, their primary purpose is to provide gap financing or loans for businesses in Clackamas, Hood River, and Wasco counties. Funding for this program originally came from state lottery funds in the 90s, and funds are available and dispersed on a revolving loan cycle. So essentially the loan goes out, they pay it back, so it's self-fulfilling and self-filling back in the monies that are there. Basically, MHEA provides secondary financing for business unable to secure enough financing through conventional banking methods, et cetera. The Alliance seeks out and invests in projects that create jobs and leverage additional investments for the 3 counties, and priority is given to those businesses development projects that create and retain better than average wage jobs in agriculture, light manufacturing, recreational equipment, technology, or the tourism industry. This IGA was originally executed in 2005, and basically MHEA board desires an update to that IGA to allow, and by authorization by the board, it would allow our businesses to still be able to qualify and capture these funds should they be available and or be selected. Currently, there is around $300,000 available for loans that are out there. And I should let you know, Hood River County and Wasco County have already approved the IGA. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if they're too specific, I have Cindy Moore here from Office of Economic Development to come up here and assist me in that.
On page 7 of the agreement, all commissioners are signing that. I want to point that out to this board. If we agree, all signatures will appear, as is in Hood River. The signatures aren't on this document from Wasco County yet. I assume they will be. Is that okay with everybody? Oh, there they are. On page 8, they popped up. Okay. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections. Thank you, Dan.
Item 2, approval of a public improvement contract with Eagle Elsner for the 242nd and Borges realignment project. Total value $254,025.50. Funding through the Damascus Road Fund. No county general funds are involved.
The board has approved prior design contracts for this particular issue. The intersection of 242nd Avenue and Borges Road, they've seen a number of incidents. Essentially, it's believed to correlate with the skewed degree of the intersection as a whole. Basically, those improvements have been designed, and this contract will execute those improvements and will allow those improvements to go to contract to be constructed. The project was advertised in accordance with ORS and LCRB rules. Proposals were publicly opened on May 2nd, 2023. We had 4 bidders as a part of that process. Contracting with Eagle Elsner Incorporated was determined to be in the best interest of the county after those bids were evaluated.
Questions, comments?
So essentially, that'll turn that into, instead of being a V, more of a 90-degree intersection?
Correct.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yep.
That's a dangerous area.
It is.
It is very dangerous. Thank you very much for this. Seeing no objections.
Item 3, approval of a guaranteed maximum price amendment to a contract with PNC Construction for construction of the Gladstone Library. The amendment value is $6,978,163. Total contract value is increased to $7,342,900. Funding is through county ARPA funds, state ARPA funds, and $2.4 million in budgeted county general funds.
You've been talking about libraries for a while now. And so there are numbers that are in here. The one thing I want to affirm to you is the fact that you authorize a total project cost of, I believe it was $10.1 million for that project alone, okay? Essentially, this is simply modifying the agreement with our contractor aligned with those costs that you were informed of when you assigned additional dollars to make sure those projects are being completed, okay? This is a guaranteed max price contract. It does include some contingency that's in and available, but essentially this is formalizing and authorizing our construction manager and general contractor to advance with the project and get the contract in place to allow him to move based on the dollars you have been informed of previously.
Questions? Page 2, paragraphs 3 and 4. Pre-construction service fee, they're outlined here. And then paragraph 4, contractor's fee of $166,000. Is that in addition to, or does that come out of which number here?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. Paragraph 4, contractor's fee, $166,079. That fee, I'm assuming, comes out of one of the above fees listed in paragraph 3?
Chair,
I believe it comes out of the totality, it's incorporated into the totality of the cost increase in the contract that we have, and those are the fees assigned to it.
Yeah, it says it's included in the gross
the
maximum
GMP.
price.
Okay, so it's included in the gross maximum, why are you?
Or guaranteed maximum price.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was already approved previously then, or is this
I couldn't
contingency?
tell you if the fee was set. Yeah, come on up. Jason Varga, the project manager, is here to
I'm
answer this
trying to
question.
understand these agreements, because, if something happens along the way, price overruns, contract amendment changes, it says here, but I don't understand what it says.
So was that set previously?
So what that's saying is really our fee is based on a percentage of it. So this is a guaranteed maximum proposal. If we don't use all the money in this, like we don't use all the contingency, they don't get the fee for whatever is unused. So what's included is, this is the amount based on that fee of, I want to say it's like 2.45% of the cost of work, if that makes sense. It's included in the whole 6.978, and just the form that procurement uses for this contract, they like to call that out separately.
Okay. Questions or comments?
Yeah,
Mr. Scholl.
I'm just going to ask this question one more time. For this guaranteed maximum price amendment, the figures that you have on this document here, we're not going to be asked to look at any other cost increases on the library. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, okay, build it.
Approve it.
Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah,
Thank you very much. I see no objections to this going forward.
thank you.
Thank you. Next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of an amendment extending the duration of an intergovernmental revenue agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation for the purchase of transit vehicles. The amendment value is 3 years. The agreement value is now $205,000 for 5 years. Funding is through the Federal Transit Administration. No county general funds are involved. Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. The Mount Hood Express connects to Sandy's bus services as a regional bus. The Villages Shuttle provides a weekday point-deviated bus service to the villages at Mount Hood communities. This helps seniors, disabled individuals, and others who need extra stops and route changes to travel to work, medical appointments, and other places. The funds received under this grant address operating deficits by covering costs associated with COVID crisis, lost revenue, and additional vehicle needs.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 2, approval to apply for a COVID relief discretionary grant through the Oregon Department of Transportation, Section 5311 funds for operations of the Mount Hood Express. Grant value is $260,000 for 2 years. Funding is through the Federal Transit Administration. No county general funds are involved.
This is 5311 COVID funding that the state must use as soon as possible. They've informed us that more cash for our existing arrangement was available in early May. These funds would allow for continued service on the Mount Hood Express and will offset the increase in contract costs due to driver shortages.
Great. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections,
Item 3, approval of a hotel motel services contract and settlement and release agreement with YKC Hospitality for 10 hotel rooms and up to 15 additional on-call hotel rooms for temporary housing. Contract value is up to $1,200,625 for 1 year. Funding is through Supportive Housing Services Measure Funds, Federal Emergency Management Agency, and other federal funds. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, these rooms will house homeless families and individuals in response to natural disasters, emergencies, and other situations where Clackamas County residents need temporary housing. At the same time, partner agencies help them find permanent housing. This contract will be funded with Supportive Housing Services Measure Funds or FEMA or other federal funds in the event of a declared emergency.
questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Item 4, approval of a local subrecipient grant agreement with Recovery Works Northwest for the establishment of a medically monitored withdrawal management program. Total agreement value is $236,075 for 12 months. Funding through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, a little bit of background on this one. There are currently no detox providers in Clackamas County. Recovery Work Northwest will open a 16-bed medically monitored withdrawal management program in Multnomah County on 122nd and Foster Road. Following this partnership that we're entering into, we will explore an ongoing relationship to ensure that Clackamas County residents seeking withdrawal management detox treatments have access to up to 4 beds.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections, Commissioner West.
Do we have any idea, based on our population and how we interact with this community, the number of designated beds for Clackamas County residents that would fill this service gap that we're all aware of?
Mary Rumbaugh's in the room, so let me pull her up here.
Hi, Mary.
Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Mary Rumbaugh, Clackamas County Behavioral Health Division Director. And the 4 that we're citing here for future contracting is really based on our analysis of the number of referrals. Our intensive care coordinator, who specifically works with those impacted by substance use, she feels like if we had 4 committed, dedicated to us, that we would have all of those 4 filled, but not a concern about, capacity or wait list.
Through like assessment, is that flexible? Like, oh gosh, like we are now seeing we need 6 or we need 10 or whatever that number is. Do we have some movability here with the need as we see it?
So the 16 beds that will exist really are available for anyone. So yes. So really the 4 we'd be contracting in the future for would be the 4 that would be specific to Clackamas County residents who are not covered under Medicaid or Oregon Health Plan, because that's really a population that has a gap. The rest of those beds would be Tri-County available. And so if we had a Clackamas County resident who had Oregon Health Plan and they had capacity in those other 12 beds, then that person would slide in there. Our 4 beds would really be dedicated to those folks who really don't have insurance, commercial insurance that may not pay for it, or who are uninsured. So that's the gap that we're trying to fill with those 4 beds at this point. And based on the work that my coordinator does, that she feels like 4 would be ideal.
That's a smaller segment of the population
Correct.
that we're even dealing with.
Correct.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Commissioner West, or excuse me, Commissioner Scholl.
And these 4 beds, these are 24-hour extended care?
Correct. I mean, people are able to go in at whatever point sort of entry happens.
For weeks.
Say that again?
So someone could potentially be there for weeks for recovery?
Correct,
Okay,
yeah.
good. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas.
That answered my question.
Okay,
actually.
good enough. Commissioner West, you have a short follow-up?
Yep, I want to add to that question. So we know with fentanyl, it's the game changer, right? But often an average of around 21 days is necessary to fully stabilize somebody, much longer than other substances and much more robust services are needed. Do these beds have the ability to provide that level of stabilization?
Yeah, so I'm really glad that you brought that up. Their primary focus will be opioid and fentanyl overdose. So they are prepared to serve people for whatever length of medical care that they need.
That's really exciting,
Yeah.
actually. Thank you.
They'll be having an open house, so once that happens, we'll make sure you all get the invite.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, I just want to add to this super quick. This is the kind of infrastructure that is about a recovery-oriented system of care. It fills a gap in the need. It's on the right track. I'm very excited. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no objections, what's next?
Item 5, approval of an amendment to increase duration of a blueprint grant with Cascade AIDS Project for senior nutrition. Amendment value is 3 months. The total agreement value is now $108,000 for 15 months. Funding through Federal Older Americans Act Title 3B. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this food bank is called Esther's Pantry, and their staff will provide culturally appropriate preferred food options to immigrant clients aged 60 and up. The grant funds will be used to prepare and distribute food boxes.
Why is this agreement only for 3 months? We're gonna have
It's
to
an
redo it
extension
again?
of a current one. We didn't want them to go without services, so it's really just extending a current contract to keep the
So
food
in the future, can
flowing.
we extend it longer than 3 months so you don't have to come back?
When I'm not sure if this is leading to a new contract, I'm not sure if I have any of my food.
That's okay. You know what? You can answer it later. We don't
Okay.
have to bring somebody up. It's
Okay.
just more efficient if we don't have to renew these little contracts every 3 months. I don't know that we're doing that in this case, but it'd be very nice. Okay. See no objections. Thank you.
Item 6, approval of an amendment for time and budget changes with Washington County and South Metro Area Regional Transit for I-205 Borland Road, Bridgeport Village Pilot Transit Service. The amendment value is 6 months. Total agreement value is now $720,000 for 1.67 years. Funding through statewide transportation improvement funds. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, and Administrator pretty much said it, but I'll say it again. This new pilot transit connection, Green Line Shuttle, is a result of the 2020 feasibility study that looked into the need for transit along the I-205 corridor. Clackamas County, Washington County, and SMART are looking to extend and connect current transportation options to connect people from Bridgeport Village to Oregon City, West Lynn, Clackamas Town Center, and critical services off of Borland Road.
Questions or comments? See no objections.
Item 7, approval of an amendment expanding the scope of work, extending the term, and increasing the funding to a personal services contract with Up and Over for mobile and/or site-based outreach and engagement, housing navigation, supportive housing case management, and on-call emergency services. Amendment value is $828,040.09 for 1 year. Total agreement value is now increased to $1,150,643.09 for 1.6 years. Funding is through Supportive Housing Services Measure Funds. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, Up and Over is a community-based organization focusing on serving people of color, providing and advocating for the basic needs of individuals and families or at risk of becoming homeless. The existing capacity will be increased from 120 to 300 households, period.
Questions, comments? Commissioner Schull?
Yes, Rod, the on-call emergency services, what is that?
That's if anyone's having an episode while they're in the motel, if they're having a mental health, or if they're having a health, or if they're having food needs, or any other types of things, we have a nonprofit ready to go in there and address their needs.
Okay.
And that's kind of how we do all of our motel.
And is there any rental assistance involved in this contract?
Not in this particular contract. That would be I don't believe that they're providing that service. We fund people to be there, and then we fund another nonprofit to do the actual service.
Okay, thank you.
I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly. Did I get that right? I want to make sure that I'm saying exactly what we're doing there.
Good morning, everyone. Adam Brown, Deputy Director, Health, Housing, and Human Services. So there is rent assistance support in this contract. There's housing navigation, rapid rehousing programming, so there's rent assistance accompanying that, short-term rent assistance.
Okay, good, thank you.
Seeing no objections, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, all of these items will be on this Thursday's business meeting agenda except for County Council Item 1 and NCPRD Items 2 and 3. Next, Replacement County Courthouse Quarterly Update. Nancy Bush, County Operating Officer, will introduce our guests.
Good morning, Commissioners and Chair Smith. So as we've always have agreed, we're doing quarterly reports for the courthouse. And it just seems like yesterday we did a report, but there's been a lot done between now and then. I also want to point out that we do have Judge Kathy Steele with us today as well for this presentation. She's here in the audience. So our presenters today are Carl Schaefer, which is the project executive for Clackamas Progress Partners, and John Kinderchuk, who is the design and build manager for Clackamas Progress Partners. So I'll turn it over to Carl.
Thank you, Nancy. Chair Smith, Commissioner, staff, thanks for having us here today again. I feel sort of the same as Nancy that it seems like we were just here. That's very indicative of how busy we've been out there, because when you're busy, time goes by fast. So, John Kinderchuk, PCL Construction Project Director, has an exciting update for us all today. And as I'm sure all of you have seen over the last 3 months, we've been busy. And we're going vertical, which is an exciting time. Digging and putting in pipes and foundations and concrete is exciting to us, but to the general public that isn't involved day-to-day in construction, until you go vertical with stuff and you can actually see it taking shape, that's when things really get good. So with that, I'll hand it over to John, and he'll walk us through the update.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here. Again, John Kinderchuk, Design Build Manager for PCL Construction. I'm going to take you through design and construction update, much like we did the last time we met. However, we will end today on what you're going to see over the summer months. So I'm going to redefine fast track design and construction for you so we understand what we are doing to date and how it involves both design, permitting, and construction simultaneously. So we continue to finish the design. We continue to, as you can see, erect structure and get the building moving. And we continue to work with the city closely to undergo all the permitting requirements for the construction project. So we've got a 36-month timeline. 9.5 months have passed. We've completed the 100% schematic design. We've completed the 100% design development package. We've just recently committed to finishing the 50% construction documents. And we will finish the final construction documents come September. Our building waterproofing will still be done in the summer of 2024. Our occupancy readiness date continues to be May 1st, 2025, and final completion of the project continues to be August 29th, 2025. So we are on schedule. In the last 9 months, we've completed the courthouse mock-ups. We've completed all the enabling and early works portion of the project. A good portion, maybe 60% of all the utilities and undergrounds are installed. Our mass excavation, or the mountain that you see on the other side of Beaver Creek, is slowly going away and returning back to the site. So when you see trucks crossing the street, that's what's happening as we're bringing all the soils back and replacing the big hole in the ground that we had. And right now, the most important thing to talk about is the structure. So the foundation is going in, all the concrete piles and footings and columns. We're just finishing up all the foundation walls and starting to actually pour concrete on grade coming next week. On grade meaning the sight line that you'll walk up to the building on. So as a recap, we've finished enabling works, we've finished the early works. We're now on the structural building and site improvements portion of the construction management timeline. And in a year from now, we'll be talking about the closeout and what that looks like. So I've included here a picture of an architectural rendering of the building from the southwest perspective. I'm going to walk you through that southwest perspective to give you an idea of what we're actually doing on site. On the top of the rectangular foundation that you see in the photograph is a basement concrete level that we're pouring actually today. The green box that you see highlighted in the photo is the very first pour that we will do on grade. and that'll be next week. This is a picture of your typical plywood formwork that actually creates the level that you'll see the first level poured out next week. This next picture is a photo of a typical foundation wall that you see that we're now backfilling with all of the Mount Beaver Creek soils, if you will. And this area here is the basement level that we're actually pouring today. So what you're seeing in this photograph are things like the vapor barrier, conduit runs, and various elements that actually get buried in the first layer of concrete in the basement in what we refer to as the Sallyport area of the courthouse. So in the coming months, you're going to see various parts of the foundation finished, and then we will be looking at slab on grade. So to the right of the photo is where you see the pouring going on today. To the left of the photo, of course, is what we're going to pour next week. That gets followed by working towards the second level of the structure, of course, followed by the third level of the structure. So by time we're sitting in front of you again in 3 to 4 months, we'll be probably at the third level already, 3 of 6. And as a closing comment, we are on schedule and on budget, and things are going very well out there. So no worries, as they say. Any questions?
This has been very exciting. Last week, I looked out my office window and I saw this really huge flatbed truck full of rebar going by, and I'm thinking, oh yes, we're at another phase of the foundation project. I was very excited about that. We're able to see, commissioners, if you walk out onto the finance out the window, and you can look and take a video, and it's just a wonderful bird's eye view. And you can need, there's a couple chairs there I noticed somebody put there. If you ever need some downtime to have lunch by yourself and just look at the busyness, it's just really, it's almost like an orchestra, the way everything is going together. And I know our PGA staff is hopefully doing some video on that. You know, one truck is moving here and you have 6 others and you have all this, and all this is like trucks, delivery trucks and construction trucks and backhoes and cement trucks, and they're all operating at the same time, and there's nothing wasted. There's not a wasted, really, opportunity out there, and I do appreciate it. And I know you've been working in inclement weather as well. I don't know if you've taken any days off for that this winter. Maybe you have. I don't know. There was a couple snow days. That's acceptable, right? But thank you very much. Are there any further comments or questions from commissioners? Commissioner Scholl?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Carl and John, all the personnel that are working on the project. You know, this courthouse has caused some people to be concerned about the cost of the courthouse, but as it comes up, as it gets finished, as it gets used, I think the people of the Clackamas County will appreciate the hardships we've gone through in getting to this point, and getting this financed and getting this built. So anyway, I look forward to August of 2025. I look forward to a donut and a cup of coffee when you open this place, okay? Judge Steele's back there, and she's looking for a donut and a cup of coffee too.
We had a recent change order, Nancy, and that was for?
So, yeah, that was for 2 items, and we were actually getting credit for, which
How
does
much
stay in the
money?
project, because we might be able to have to use that. But and one of it was for aluminum and changing copper to aluminum for some conduits, and the other one was for the glaze that was being put, I believe, in the basement floor, which is down the Sallyport area, and I think the area where they bring in those from the jail. So those 2 things, and it was a credit of $771,000.
771. I hope that we can keep that in the credit side of the ledger and not spend it on overruns elsewhere, since our contract is guaranteed. Right, Judge Steele?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. This has been a really delightful presentation. We appreciate all your work.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you for coming.
Next on the agenda, Board Town Hall Topics. Sue Hildick, Director of Public and Government Affairs, and Dylan Blaylock, Community Relations Specialist, will present. There is a memo in your packet.
Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. So we are here to talk about external-facing town halls, which have been on pause, and we understand there's some interest in restarting them. And so we have pulled the history together for you and suggested some options, but we're really here to get some direction from you of how these should go over the next few months, or maybe starting again in the fall. Dylan is going to lay out some ideas.
Great. Thank you, Sue. Good morning, Commissioners. Good to see you. In the memo that you have, you see 2 possible topics. I will add that we, of course, have had a lot of great success with our turnout since we have gone virtual. That is what we continue to recommend with these virtual town halls on Zoom. And the topics that you have before you, number 1, tolling, what is the current status? And number 2, farming and food production in Clackamas County. I've heard of interest from in each of these topics from some of you over the last year or so, and just in conversations. Of course, PGA is happy to develop a town hall on any topic that you choose at any time, and we can do that at any time that you want. So,
If we were to conduct a town hall on farming and food production in Clackamas County, who would be our experts on that? Certainly don't think I would, even though I'm a farmer, but I couldn't present the way I'm thinking it needs to be presented.
that's more of how I envision that, Chair Smith, is that's more of a listening session style town hall where we hear directly from farmers, and we want to, we're trying to suss out what the county can do to support them. It's less about, it wouldn't be as much as like the previous tolling town hall where we had ODOT guests. But we could, if you wanted to go ahead and have farming guests.
Yeah, I don't think farmers are going to attend.
Okay.
Seriously. I envision maybe something else if we had some subject experts come and talk about the essentials for farming and how we feed ourselves, and how it's more important than ever that we don't rely on exports from other states because of the high cost of this or other troubles, or, Commissioners, I don't know if you want to even do this subject. Maybe we have a better topic in mind. I'm not saying we have to, although this is a topic that's very near and dear to me. Every time we go to the grocery store, we don't have much independence in our food supply, unless you live on a farm and able to do your own. And there's that. Wow, we have 4 lights up here, and I'm not sure who was next, but I think it was Commissioner Scholl.
Okay. Well, one idea we might think about is a town hall, Clackamas County 2050. What's the county going to look like?
Oh.
What can people anticipate their transportation infrastructure might look like in 2050? What new areas might be opened up for residential and industrial projects by 2050? I know that might sound kind of futuristic, but actually, I think a lot of people might find that town hall very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Something to think about.
That's innovative. I believe Commissioner...
George Jetson comes to mind.
Huh? Yeah, Commissioner Savas. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think timing is going to be important on the tolling issue, so we'll continue to work with our staff and find out the right time, but I think I'm looking forward to that one. Some other ideas I had was, and I think timely might be a reminder or an update, whatever you might call it, about working towards fire prevention, defensible space. That's a big issue, and we're right in that season. So I think that would be timely. The other one, I think we somewhat should probably allow people to know is what we're doing, our progress on homeless housing solutions. And one thing in particular on that topic, I think would be really educational, and also getting some feedback on, clearly people have a certain vision of what that looks like. When you talk about a shelter, people see maybe what they see on TV in Portland, for example. And there's different types and there's different models, and I think pictures and words can tell a great story and what it is we do, what we advocate for, what we don't want to do, see. So I have found in my discussions that having pictures and explaining the terminology, and I think we have to be consistent with, and what the difference is between, for example, transitional shelter versus a transitional housing. Those are two different things. They look completely different. Versus a shelter, which is completely different than transitional shelter, right? So I think that would be a topic. And also, I don't know about the timing, but when we kind of mend some fences here, maybe we can do an update on what we're doing with law enforcement and in our progress with that. But I don't think we're ready for that just yet. But when things calm down a little bit and we can have a good discussion about what we are doing, I think helping give some credibility to not only the county and the sheriff's office, but the deputies and all the people that are doing the hard work on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for those ideas. I can comment on the homeless housing piece. We talked to H3S about timing, and their suggestion was November. For that, our annual report on the SHS dollars will be done in October. They thought that we could leverage a town hall after that was completed.
Yeah. But lastly, on the law enforcement thing, it's very clear that there's a lot of misunderstandings out there. So how much of that is we can get the conversation calmed down a bit, maybe we can find the common ground and understanding of what we are really doing and let people know that, there are no cuts that are impacting positions, and we're out there. And by the way, here's what we're doing. Here's what the sheriff's doing with the levy, and which we support, and so on. So that's what I have.
Thank you. Commissioner West.
Commissioner Sabas, I really am glad that you mentioned that. I think pushing back against the misinformation around the shared and common goals on law enforcement is essential, and I think it brings some peace of mind to our community. I do fully support continuing that conversation as we try to move that vision and goals that we have in the sphere of public safety, and what does that totally look like for the county? What does that encompass, and what is the promises and the proof of promise kept, right? We said we would do X, we provided X, right? And showing the public that we're going to make sure we're making that concerted effort to protect our communities. Chair Smith, I think that the agricultural piece is so important, not just to our rural areas, but we all eat that way, right? And understanding that, I think, is essential. And we have such a great partnership with Clackamas Community College is also in this, is pretty awesome, which is coming down the pike with that. And how does that involve the conversation? I guess we're talking about timing. Farmers are super busy right now because the sun is out, right? And they're working hard in overtime and long hours to keep us fed and healthy. I don't know if this season is probably the best way to get them to participate, but maybe even the universities, the agricultural extension services, the community college around this, maybe some farmers market entrepreneurship with smaller, small business farms, smaller farms that contribute to the overall food supply. And how can we help support that? I think it's pretty, we have the largest rural population in the state of Oregon within our county. So it's very significant to what we're about. So I would be open to that. I like all the other ideas too.
I do too.
And I also, with Commissioner Scholl, what do we look like in 50 years? Well, what if tolling happens? Is the Sunset Corridor here yet? How much farmland do we still have left? Are we still a safe county? Have we resolved these different chronic issues? Is homelessness worse or better? What is that vision? Also, I think that's what was spurring my mind, and what I started to think about it is so we do all of this immediate stuff now, solving chronic issues, dealing with homelessness, addiction, farming, transportation, tolling. What do we want that to be in 50 years? I think it's quite visionary. And maybe 50 years is too long. Maybe it's a 5, 10, 20-year plan. We're going to map that out so we know that we're going in the right direction as a county. and then we get to that bigger, none of us will probably be on this dais. Maybe Martha will still be here. But I don't think any of us are going to still be here. But I think that's a good way to set vision, so.
Yep, thank you. Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, I can guarantee I won't be here 50 years from now. I'll be under the ground somewhere here in England, I suspect. Not sure where I'm going to land yet. But in any case, what I would be interested in is looking at, now that we have a revitalization going on in our economic development program, I'd like to see, and I've been visiting various businesses, Cisco, KinderCare is a business, believe it or not, as a private entity supplying, childcare. I'm going to be visiting FLIR. I've contacted Oregon Institute of Technology to see what they're doing in terms of training, what the pipeline is. So I'd like to see something that talks about what we've been doing for retention, expansion, okay, and then recruitment, and how we leverage federal dollars, particularly through the comprehensive economic development strategy for business expansion in the region, who we partner with, how we leverage that money, how we get it through here. I think in particular, that's going to be a big thing as people start to recover from the pandemic, and what their needs are, what we can do to help regulatory infrastructure not to be too onerous, all of those kinds of things. I'd like to get an overview of what our major sectors are. I know we've got manufacturing. I know we have food production is a key piece of what we do, so that agricultural piece under food production would fit pretty nicely. Then we have a large, business sector, professional services. That's a big economic driver. It'd be nice to take a look at that landscape and see where we are with that right now. And Cindy and our new economic development director, Laura, are working on that right now, looking at the sectors. And we have, for example, a very large medical manufacturing businesses here. It seems to be a cluster within a cluster. And how they work with Providence, how they work with the research folks at OHSU, how they work with Legacy System. All of those systems have research arms from everything to hematology to whatever. And we have businesses here that actually help with that. We have people that make knees. We have people that make elbows. We have people that do heart technologies. We have companies who are traded sector, Germany, England, so on and so forth. They're located here. We have Siemens, okay, and Daimler, and all of these other industries. How is it affecting our landscape, and what are they doing? The other thing I wanted to mention with that is our workforce group has been looking at childcare as an economic driver, not as a childcare for all kind of thing. I keep saying, no, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about directly speaking with our businesses, seeing what an issue it is for workforce, and are there some private-public partnerships that we can pull together to make sure that employers have an opportunity to help with that infrastructure and also help with their employees in terms of retention, expansion, and so on and so forth. So that's a really interesting conversation, and the Workforce Board is pulling together a conversation on that on June 28th. We'll have Daimler there. We'll have KinderCare will be in a presence there. We'll have Siemens there. And some other folks. I can get the whole list to you. It might be nice to get that filmed if we could, actually. But
happy to do that.
Okay, we're talking about town halls. Thank you, Commissioner, for that. And Laura Edmonds is going to be making a presentation to this board for us to make a decision on August. She'll be coming here in August, so we can make a decision on what she wants, on what we want her to do, based on the information she has. So I really like this idea, Commissioner Schrader, of workforce development, economic development, and encompassing a lot of those areas in it, but it's probably not a most immediate town hall. I'm thinking maybe a little bit later in the year or next year. But, I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 suggestions from commissioners. I like the fact that food production could be an economic development I think it fits there.
That's under the whole umbrella of what we do
Yeah.
as part of it.
So how many town halls are you thinking?
We can do as many as you'd like, but we were
What?
thinking we can do as many as you'd like. We can do up to, I would say, no more than one a month. But we were thinking just one for the summer before coming back to you in the fall for going in and suggesting
So are
some
you
then as well.
thinking about starting this fall?
No, I was thinking about starting this summer, going in and having one either in late July or in August, whenever the board can
Okay.
get together.
So commissioners, let's say we have a town hall late July and August, and I have 5, and I hope I didn't miss something. We have, what will the county look like in 2050? Fire prevention owned space, our own spaces. Homeless and housing solutions, what does that look like? Law enforcement a little bit later, workforce development, economic development, that whole sector. What do you want to do first? Commissioner West.
Most immediate is fire, and we just dealt with that trauma. I mean, it looked like Armageddon, like when that hit Clackamas County, and it felt like that way to a lot of people. So I think we need to really communicate with the community and have them communicate to us as we maybe have to potentially deal with stuff like this again, these kind of, tragic events again.
Because we had one up at Beaver Creek.
Yeah.
Not long ago, because I don't know why it started. We still haven't got an after-action report on that, how or why it started. It was east winds. It was first reported as a brush fire. I suspect it was a logging slash situation, based on the pictures I saw on Coin 6. So I saw stumps burning, okay? But I don't know. And that leads to another question. When you have logging slashes, was it permitted by the Department of Forestry, and then it got out of hand? Or maybe they just did it on their own, because we have some rogue people around. But the problem with that is then it's called on county resources to fix a problem. And I think that is an education aspect. So
Madam Chair,
maybe
yep.
we do fire?
Yeah, we would be happy to work with disaster management on framing that and bring that.
Framing that?
Yeah.
So if we can select 2 but not discard any of these, so end of July, 1st of August, let's try to find some time on the calendar, and then you guys can gear up for the fire prevention owned spaces. Then we have 2050, what we will look like, homeless housing solutions, law enforcement, workforce development. What do we want to do next? I'm thinking September, because we're going to have a lot of time off in August. So we can come back in September and have a town hall the 2nd or 3rd week, probably in September, for the next town hall. What would you like to do in September?
Well, Chair,
Oh, Commissioner, I didn't see you.
yeah, Chair, as long as we're flexible, I don't know when our staff might feel, or the region, or C4, or us might feel that the tolling conversation might be most opportune, but as long as we're flexible, let's just noodle that and just keep our mind open. I just want to go back to the defensible space with fire and make sure that we provide some educational. So I'm sure that our fire providers, 1 or 2 of them might have some experts then help
Yeah.
participate in that. That'd be great. And I guess the timeliness of working with our sheriff cooperatively factor into that as well, and that homeless housing solutions one. Not necessarily in that order, but whatever's right.
Yeah.
Right and ripe.
Right. I would suggest that you might target the September one for tolling tentatively,
Yeah.
and we evaluate that and have a backup option. And then November maybe for housing homelessness.
Mark, for January, that might be a good topic for what you suggested, what will we look like in 2050? Since it's January, we're starting a new year.
I think it's a good idea.
I do, and we can noodle on that, and,
We can invite a futurist maybe to help.
yeah, invite
help
some
us with
futurists to
that.
come in.
They do
See what
exist.
kind of AI we'll be using in our brains, right?
I would like to see the economic development piece happen in like February, March. if we
Okay, so
could.
would
That
that
would
Okay,
be
we
good.
have September, October, November. Now, November is going to be really hard.
I was going
I
to say,
suggest September and October.
For what? And not having any more?
Well, no, November's going to be hard. We're not going to be able to schedule
No,
one
I'm
for
thinking
November.
February, I'm thinking 2024.
So we'll have a town hall in July/August, one in September. We do have another opportunity in October for a town hall if you want that. West?
I think maybe in October, and I don't know about November timing-wise,
November.
but I think that we are just also going to be getting into the beginning of election season. And so what is on the forefront of the minds of voters, I think housing, addiction, and mental health services is, and we've already agreed to refer 2 questions to the voters to that May ballot so we can begin. I think we need to maybe prep and talk about with the community as those questions go out to the voters. I don't know, what do you guys think? Where do we put housing, homeless? I feel like you can cover housing, homelessness, and addiction all in one encompassing kind of discussion.
Remember, you have the Blue Ribbon Committee process, which is going to have some gatherings of stakeholders, and that is happening, I believe, in September.
Yeah.
So that's why we were thinking then the report comes out in October, and then November might be.
Well, we can come back.
Yeah.
In a couple months and discuss what we want to do. I have this list. I'm sure you have your list. We might
We'll
want to take
put a
something
plan
off
together
this
off
and
of
add
that.
something to it.
Yeah, and I am going to insist we do economic development in the 2024 thing, because we need to do that, because by then we're going to have our feet under ourselves. We're going to know what we're doing, where we're going, and I think that needs to get out there, because I think the expansion of our businesses is key, particularly in the 212 corridor down there in Happy Valley. I think we need to pull that in. And I also think that we need to really address the workforce problem, because as we even talked about this morning, for example, with our ambulance system, talking with Randy Lauer, which I have spoken to him as well, basically, they're dealing with a lack of workforce. So how do we shape that? How do we move that forward?
Thank you, Commissioner Schrader. We did talk with Laura about this and know that the survey is underway.
Good.
Which she's going to be bringing back to you. We kind of wanted to wait to see the survey results to frame the questions.
I think that's important, yeah.
But it's top of mind as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Martha, if you want to wait until after that, because we could put that up in October, as early as October.
That could be fine, yeah.
If we can do there. But, let's decide as a board for the later ones. So what I have is fire protection, defensible spaces in August and tolling in September. And then we can decide on more.
Maybe one in October on economic development.
Right.
Just saying.
Yeah, we can meet on this. We can put it on the issues whenever we need to.
Absolutely.
Right. How's that for direction?
Very good. Got it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Gary, what's next?
Next, advisory board appointments. Tony, go ahead, please.
Developmental Disabilities Council, staffed by Health, Housing, Human Services, currently has 12 openings on their commission due to term expirations. 18 members are allowed. Through a recruitment process, 2 applications were received and are recommended for appointment. The recommendations are John Merrick to a 2nd term and Jacob Tolbert to a 2nd term.
I'll entertain a motion.
Chair, I move that we appoint to the Developmental Disabilities Council John Merrick for a 2nd term ending on 6/30/26, and for Jacob Tolbert, 2nd term, which ends on 6/30/26.
Second.
Commissioner West has moved we approve the DD Council, John Merrick and Jacob Tolbert, to the commission, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Schull,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Gary, what's next?
Your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, June 15th at 10 a.m. You have a presentation on the Metro Regional Supportive Housing Services Fiscal Year 2022 Regional Annual Report. Our friends from Metro will be here to present, and then you'll have all the consent agenda items you discussed today for your approval. If you have any questions on any item, please let me know prior to Thursday, and I'll answer it for you. Final item today is Commissioner Communications.
Thank you. Commissioner West, you're up first.
Not a ton to report. I'm excited about what we're going to be talking about this week. And as we get a little further into the week, I will opine a little further on some of the topics as they come up, but no need to forecast them. But it's going to be a busy week, and I'm excited about some of the things that we are working on to potentially bring forward here in Clackamas County, and the hard work of our staff and the work that we're doing here on this board. And it's good to have Commissioner Savas back. And your first full week back from DC, so it's great to have our colleague back with us. So that's all I have.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I actually ran into Commissioner Shull this weekend. We were at the Strawberry Waffle breakfast out in Boring, and they have some issues there I was hopeful you would be talking about, because I overheard that. So I was hopeful you would address that, Commissioner Shull. They did give me a tour of the nuts and bolts, because of some of the folks that were, they were serving the stuff actually run the theater there. They actually some pretty excellent performances. They gave me a whole tour of the area that they fixed up, the light situation, the stage. It was pretty, well, I'm always doing theater. This job is theater sometimes, right? I mean.
You have a new role.
I do. But that was kind of a fun afternoon, and I'm glad that I was able to get out there. And other than that, Association of Morgan Counties, I think 3 of us were attending. I saw you at Transportation, Paul. I was there. Commissioner Shull, you were there. And then I stayed through the Legislative Committee and the Board of Directors meeting. However, I did not stay for the Budget and Finance Committee's special meeting, which I couldn't. I just had other meetings I had to go to and other things I had to attend to. Actually, part of it was speaking with Gary. That was our time to talk. So that, I think, is something we need to take a look at, because they're going to be deciding how they're going to manage their dues situation at the Association of Oregon Counties. I don't know, I thought maybe one or both of you colleagues could talk a little bit more in detail about some of the things that happened at the association. The Legislative Committee usually goes through every piece of what we do. I did take notes, I just don't have them in front of me right now. But good meetings, and yep, we're moving ahead. The organization is stable, and they are, stable financially and stable with what they do. I have made suggestions that they do need to keep a list of all the unfunded mandates. They're in process of doing that. They didn't have that information when we initially asked for it. But I've asked them to please make sure that they keep track of that each legislative session of when we're, doing that, when that's happening to us rather than with us, and make sure we push back with the legislature on that through their advocacy. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I'm going to be brief because I'm still have this echo from my airplane ear, so my head's plugged up from that. It doesn't happen very often, but it happened. Quickly to Commissioner Schrader's question on the Transportation Committee, I'm hoping that we can get some attention to the transportation funding issue as it affects the counties and the cities. And there was a little bit of discussion at C4 about that, and with regard to that future. But here we are in the epicenter of this funding discussion, and the rest of the state is oblivious to it. And I just feel a responsibility to bring it to AOC, and I did get that ask passed, but there's been not much in the way of traction on that. So I don't know if someone from the Legislative Committee can, because I'm not on the Legislative Committee any longer, could raise that as a topic to get some background. But I just want to let you know that there's some new material coming out, and I got 2 meetings on transportation funding today. Tolling is obviously the topic for most of that. But there's a scenario out there where they could be coming at us with 2 additional taxes or fees, however you want to look at it. And I think there was a understanding that a road user fee / vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, would be in lieu of gas tax, not on top of. I'm just concerned with the vagueness of this, that it's going to impact households and businesses far more than anyone ever realized. So I will, again, because I have this echo when I'm talking, it's very distracting. I'll just stop there and say, I did attend the Strawberry Festival, or the Strawberry Waffle at the Boring Grange from 8 o'clock to about 10 o'clock, or just before 8 o'clock. So I spent a couple hours there.
I did the afternoon, yeah.
So I didn't know who our park person was on the leaning tree out there in the planter, but I think that's Commissioner Scholl was
Got it going,
the point
yeah.
person, so I mentioned his name, and
We got it going.
I hope he'll be here today. I'm sure he would, and you did, so awesome.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank Metro Council President Lynn Peterson for the briefing on the status of the region last Tuesday at the World Trade Center. It was very interesting. She concentrated mostly on progress in housing, but it was an opportunity to meet a lot of really nice people there. Then last Wednesday, I was out in your neighborhood, Chair Smith, at the Clark's Highland CPO and listened to issues out there. One of the things we're working on now is looking at a potential traffic caution light out there. And then last Thursday evening, I had the privilege of being with the League of Minority Voters at the Benson Hotel for their annual Civic Action Award ceremony dinner, which was very nice. I met a lot of nice people. Sunday morning, I was at the Boring Grange for the waffle, but people were bending in my ear so much, all I got was a cup of coffee that morning. I never got a waffle. I think Commissioner Schrader ate my waffle. Darn it.
I did. I got a hold of it.
But that was a good time. Oh, also, we do have Clackamas County Parks working on the issues with the leaning Christmas tree and the drain problem and a couple of other things out there. And then last night, I addressed the Oregon Trail School District Board regarding the Portland Water Bureau plant, which is a huge issue in that end of the county. And this afternoon, Commissioner West and I will do some public outreach on ideas for a transitional housing project over by Jennifer Road next to the Veterans Village. And we'll be talking to some of the businesses out there on how they feel towards a potential project like that. So that's what's going on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Last week, I did a lot of interviews regarding Measure 110, and we're getting traction on the fact that we're going to refer a couple questions in the next May primary. There's a lot of activities, a lot of ideas coming out because of that, and I believe, Commissioners, we will receive supports from many counties across Oregon in our efforts to do that. Just teeing up, tomorrow we have two policy sessions. Lucia Farm Local Parks Master Plan, that has been talked about forever, and this is the beginning of a very long process for them to continue on what they want to do out there. And we've been waiting for the city of Lake Oswego to come forward, but we need to make, I think, a decision on that to punt it down the road further, whatever that process is. And then at 11 o'clock, we have a policy session on supportive housing services, one-time and limited-term allocations, how we will be spending the money that is coming in through the SHS taxes that Clackamas County citizens are paying, and it should be very enlightening. And for those out there, I hope you listen and know what we're doing. It's very thoughtful, and I think the plan that's coming forward is listening to the Board of County Commissioners and the values of Clackamas County citizens on that. Seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.